Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to my Pro Evolution Soccer 2020 review. This is going to be a bit of a comparison to the demo, so I do apologize if you haven't played the demo. But let me tell you what the game would be like if I'd never played the demo. This would be probably one of the best football games I would have ever played. But because I've played the demo, there's a lot of comparisons. Some aspects of the demo I prefer, some aspects of the full game I prefer. And it was really hard to decipher, like, in my head, how or which areas of the game was better. So what I did was I got a spreadsheet. I put every aspect of playing a football game onto the spreadsheet and then scored it doing that, because some aspects, like I said, preferred of the full game and some aspects I preferred of the demo. So I do apologize if you've not played the demo, but if you haven't, it is a fantastic game and it's definitely worth picking up. It's one of the best football games ever made, probably. But for me, it's being held back because I know I've played the demo, and I just thought there's just some aspects of that they've got to take across back to the full game. And if they do it with a data pack 1 or patch it, in my eyes, it would just be absolute pure heaven. Anyway, let's get into the comparisons between the full game and the demo. Okay, so let's start off at the goalkeepers. Now, goalkeepers in the demo felt too overpowered. Long-range shots were nearly impossible to pull off. And also, the goalies would save or make a save, and they would parry or punch the ball out for a throw-in. And that just felt like the ball physics didn't feel quite right. Sometimes you do like quite a soft shot, and then the goalkeepers would punch the ball harder than your shot out for a throw-in, and it just didn't feel right. So for goalies, the full game gets a mark. So 1-0 to the full game. So the next subject is slide tackling. So I'm going to cover player responsiveness in a bit, but in the demo, I always felt you had greater control of your players, which allowed for more frequent slide tackles. And slide tackling also felt rewarding. And because you were making more slide tackles during the game, that would also lead to an increased number of fouls. And also the AI would be very, very aggressive as well in their slide tackles. So the demo definitely gets an equalizer there. So it's 1-1. Next up is a bit of a contentious one, I would say, with the standing tackle. Now, in my demo review, I complained as well, like everyone else, or like a lot of people, saying that the standing tackle led to too many free kicks, there was too many fouls, even the slightest touch, tripping a player would lead to a foul. But then I realized that I was tackling wrong. I realized that I couldn't just charge in like a rhino anymore, and you had to be precise. And when I learnt that, I hardly gave any free kicks away. And when I did, it's because I was trying to, get the ball out of desperation from a certain angle that I knew wasn't going to win the ball cleanly anyway. So with the full game, like I said, you can charge in like a rhino, holding X from any angle, and pretty much win the ball back, even on legend difficulty. And for me, and that reason alone, that the demo gets another point. So it's now 2-1 to the demo. Next up is physicality. Now, in the full game, there's far more tussles and better physicality in the full game than there was in the demo. I remember seeing a small clip of Maradona sort of getting manhandled by about 2 or 3 players and then eventually just sort of rolling and falling to the ground. And I never saw that in the demo. And I did ask sort of, where was that physicality? I'm not seeing it in the demo, but it is actually now in the full game. So I would say the physicality is better in the full game than it was in the demo. So that is now 2-2. Fouls. Now, as I stated above about the standing tackle that you can just hold X and charge in from any angle, fouls are so infrequent on the full game, and it's really disappointing to see, considering they pretty much nailed it perfectly on the demo. But like I said, with all the people complaining, a lot of people voiced their opinions, I think perhaps too soon, without learning the actual sort of physics and sort of game engine and understanding how the game was supposed to be played at that time. That they sort of just said, oh, quick, got all these people complaining on Twitter and social media. We definitely need to douse that fire. And in the full game, we'll just take out fouls completely. And it's a real disappointment to me. That makes it 3-2 to the demo. There's no real changes to the free kicks or penalties, and they've been much the same as PES 2019. I find the free kicks are a little bit too easy to score, but it's still enjoyable anyway. So I certainly don't want anything like the FIFA free kicks. They're just absolutely ridiculous and overly complicated. So I'm not going to award a point to the demo or full game for either of those. Next up, we're going to look at the AI. So I'm going to start off with the AI defensively and then go on to the AI offensively, because there's two different aspects to the AI. So the defensive AI in the demo is better. I find that weaker teams will concede less ground, and there was a nice balance for also falling for skills, but also defending them well if the skill wasn't timed well enough. In the full game, it's a total... Defensively, I find in the full game that teams sort of sit back in numbers, pack the penalty box, and produce so many blocks. All you got to see is my Newcastle and Everton games. If you watched either of those, you would see that I'm just like hitting body after body after body in the box. It just doesn't feel realistic. They need to be, strategically or tactically, they need to be further out. You wouldn't just concede all that ground and let straight off the kickoff. If you watch the Newcastle game, I get the ball, I pass it backwards, I hold it for 2 seconds and watch the whole Newcastle team run back towards their own box, straight into their, pretty much defending the edge of their penalty area. Also, on Superstar difficulty, I find that AI do not fall for a single skill. Maybe the double touch is probably the only one that worked really well as the most effective skill. But again, it's, as soon as you do a skill, they just jump onto you and pretty much win the ball every single time. So you really, really have to time it perfectly. If you don't get it perfect, you're going to lose the ball, and you're going to lose it probably about 9 times out of 10. So I would just avoid using skills on Superstar difficulty, and certainly Legend difficulty, don't even bother at all. So the defensive AI point goes to the demo. Now let's talk about the offensive AI. Now, in the demo, the AI was non-existent offensively. It was so boring to play that I didn't have any challenge whatsoever with the Superstar AI on the demo. I would have loved to have seen what happens to the AI on Legend difficulty in the demo, but obviously there was no Legend difficulty in the demo to test. It may have been perfect, but we'll never know. So the AI rarely scored and also tried ridiculous shots from all angles, sometimes feeding a teammate who was in a better position. In the full game, the AI offensively is absolutely brilliant. They're so creative and come up with different ways of attack. Sometimes they'll cross it into the box, sometimes they'll pass it through the middle. So for that reason, I'm giving the AI offensive point to the full game. That makes it 4-3 to the demo. Now, I know this is going to be a bit contentious, this one, but the player weight, feel, and responsiveness, for me, in my opinion, in the demo was far superior. I find that in the full game, they're a little bit too heavy and a bit too sluggish, and that does have a real big impact online, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. Some may consider it a bit too floaty and less realistic, but I do prefer that sort of instant control, and what happens on my gamepad is happening on the screen at the time. Of course, there has to be that weight distribution. You can't have it too floaty, but I thought the demo really nailed it. So I'm going to give a point to the demo, so that makes it 5-3 to the demo. Next up is skills. Now, in the demo, I felt the skills were far more responsive than the full game. And as I previously mentioned, the AI on Superstar difficulty in the demo actually falls for the skills. And skills really do feel redundant in the full game. Very, very rarely will you have a high success rate of skills against Superstar difficulty, and especially Legend difficulty. So for that reason, I'm going to give another point to the demo. That makes it 6-3 to the demo. Next up is finesse dribbling. Now, in the demo, finesse dribbling was actually a really key part of building attacks, retaining possession of the ball, and it was so immediate and responsive in the demo. However, in the full game, it's just not responsive enough, and certainly on superstar difficulty, very, very rarely do I use the finesse dribble due to its unresponsive nature, and online, absolutely atrocious. Don't even bother. But in the demo online, it was absolutely fine. So another point for the demo, I'm afraid. That makes it 7-3. Low passing. Now, I found in the demo, the PA1 or basic PA1 pass assist 1, was way too assisted. Very short passes were really difficult to pull off. And in the full game, it feels much more weighty and adds certainly a degree of realism to the actual gameplay, because it takes a while longer to power up the pass bar. So it does allow for a good tiki-taka gameplay in the full game. So a point for low passing to the full game. So 7-4. Lofted passing, again, same issue really. PA1 basic passing was far too assisted with lofted passes in the demo. And in the full game, there's just a greater feel to the lofted passes. So another point, and it looks like the full game is on a bit of a comeback now. So that's 7-5 to the demo. Through balls, so high through balls. Sometimes in the full game, you find players sort of get confused, spin around aimlessly when trying to receive a through ball. And also notice that if you don't time it right with your, say, your quick strikers, and they're not directly on the last man, what you'll find is that they drop off in pace. It's really strange. You'll play a through ball over the top, and your quick striker will sort of pause for a second as if he's trying to understand where the ball is in the game. And only when it's gone past him does he go, oh, the ball's going that way. But because of the weight and the player distribution and the responsiveness, he's already lost the ball because the defender's far too quick for him. So for that reason, the demo gets another point. So it's now 8-5 to the demo. Now with the through ball low passes, whilst players can still get confused and spin around, the low through ball itself feels perfect in the full game. There's been a couple of times where I've wanted to do a certain type of through ball to a player running through, and I've actually been able to pull off what I wanted to in my head. So what I wanted to pull off in my head actually happened in the game, which is beautiful to see. So for that reason, the full game gets another point. So that is now 8-6 on the scorecard. Crossing. Now, crossing in the full game is way better. I felt like crosses in the demo all felt a little bit random. You couldn't really determine what type of cross was going to happen. Sometimes they were too floaty. Sometimes they were like drilled in nicely. But in the full game, it's probably one of the best crossing mechanics I've ever experienced in a football game. So that's another point for the full game. Now it's 8-7 to the demo on the scorecard. Player selection can be a bit of an issue with the full game, but it was also an issue on the demo as well. Certainly when you're doing short passes, which I already mentioned before with the low passing. So as it's about even, I'm going to call that a draw. So that's it's 8-7 still on the scorecards. Super Cancel. Now, Super Cancel in the demo is far superior, with the exception of it being broken online to an extent for cancelling shots and passes. However, in terms of movement and free player movement, it was absolutely fine. The lack of responsiveness in the full game certainly makes Super Cancel difficult to use in certain circumstances. So I'm going to say that is a point to the demo for Super Cancel usage. So that's 9-7 on the scorecard. Teammate pressure. So I didn't notice any difference between the two. So I'm going to call that even as well. So it's still 9-7 on the scorecards. Assisted teammate controls. Now in the demo, this was completely broken because if you used it once or twice, it would completely deplete your player's stamina. It has been fixed in the main game, but players still jog and that must be fixed in a later patch down the line. So that is now 9-8 on the scorecards as I give the point to the full game. Controlled shots in the full game seem really, really slow. I mean, I do use a stadium cam, and the pace of the game generally feels slower anyway. Certainly if you've watched my Master League videos, but the controlled shots just feel a little bit too slow in the full game. Certainly if you watch some of my shooting tutorials, I was able to get a load of pace and bend in the demo on those controlled shots, and was able to shoot from like 40 or 50 yards and almost beat the goalkeeper. So I'm going to award the point for controlled shots to the demo. So that is now 10-8 on the scorecard. Next up is normal shots. So normal shots felt too fast in the demo and feel just right in the full game. So whilst the control shots were too slow in the full game, the normal shots are better. So that is now 10-9 on the scorecards with a point going to the full game. Long range shots. Now long range shots feel fantastic in the full game. Goalie struggled to save them too. So goals from 30 to 40 yards, whilst infrequent, can actually happen. So that's a point for the full game. Whereas in the demo, you found the goalkeepers were just saving long shots far too easily. So that is now 10-10 or 10-all on the scorecards. So level pegging. Next up is player speed. Fast players are easily caught up in the full game. Whereas before in the demo, you were able to like sprint down. If you had a fast player, it'd be very, very hard to catch them. And also, as I mentioned before, if there's a through ball, you may notice that your quick striker struggles to respond to the ball being played, giving the defender an advantage. So, yeah, it doesn't feel like there's, you can break away, and it does feel like the catch-up bug, as I would call it, has been reintroduced in the full game. I can understand why it happens. They want this balance of not being able to just run around or sprint past a bunch of players down the wing where no one can catch them. It's something I used to exploit in the demo. It was a bit daft, getting Jordi Alba and just sprinting down the wing and no one else can catch you if they're not close enough, or your opponent didn't read it. So I can understand that. But for me, it was nice in the demo that you had Mbappe. Once he got behind your defense, you weren't catching him. So I'm going to give, another point to the demo for player speed. So that is now 11-10 on the scorecard. Lastly is the online gameplay. So the online in the full game feels just so unresponsive and wasn't enjoyable whatsoever. It's possibly one of the worst experiences I've had since PES 2014, 2015, which were two of the worst iterations of PES in my opinion. There also seems to be a lesser number of animations online compared to offline, and I think that's probably the reason. Like sometimes you play a simple ball to a player and they sort of spin around confused and they don't pick up the ball quite correctly. So thankfully I'm not an online player, but the online aspect on the demo was better. Therefore I'm giving the point to the demo. That, ladies and gents, leaves a scorecard of 12 points to the demo and 10 for the full game. Now, I know you guys were asking which do I prefer, the demo or the full game. It's not a straight answer, and that's why I did this. I prefer some aspects of the demo. I prefer some aspects of the full game. I think the full game is closer to a better game, being a better game than the demo. Certainly the AI piece, that is huge. To get that right and to make it feel challenging and enjoyable at the same time, I think that the full game is certainly nearer to an absolute masterpiece. I just think they need to fix the tackling. If they can fix the tackling in terms of making it a bit more of a skilled approach again, and also the finesse dribbling and skills, allowing the AI to not always win the ball as soon as you do a skill. Otherwise, it just makes them redundant, and all those skills that you can do are pointless on superstar and above difficulty. Would be nice if there was a bit of a human error to the AI sometimes. That goes for the finesse dribbling as well. It being so unresponsive, there's no point using it on superstar or above AI in the full game. And that was something they heavily marketed. So it would be nice if they could make it a bit more responsive and actually bring it back and make it an important part of the game. So if I was to traditionally score this game, say out of 100%, I would say this is like 88%. Now, if you compare that to what I would give PES 2018, which is the best football game ever made, in my opinion, I would probably give that 95%. And PES 2019, 94%. That shows you how close those two are together. But yeah, just this has got some way to go. But I think, with a few patches, and if they get it right, this could still be a masterpiece. Anyway, that's all from me, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Bye-bye.